Hello, my name is Dennis Brown. I'm the Senior Assistant Pastor at the Pentecostals of Peterborough, and I'm here with another devotional today. Today I'm going to be talking just for the next few moments about the difference between repentance and being a living sacrifice. So the difference between repentance and yielding totally and completely to God in every aspect of your life. Now we understand that repentance is the acknowledgement of sin in your life. God, I have fallen short. God, I have done things wrong. And so you acknowledge what you have done and how God hasn't desired that for you. And then it is a turning from that sin or that way of life. That is true repentance, acknowledging what we have done and then completely turning away from that, never to do that again. That is true repentance. Repentance is not saying sorry and continuing on the same path. That's emotionalism. But there's a difference between repentance and sacrificing your life to the Lord. Romans 12:1 says this, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Or what the apostle here is telling us, it's the least we can do, is give your bodies a living sacrifice that can be acceptable to God. He's not talking about, obviously, ending our life. He's talking about giving the rest of our life totally to the Lord and His will and His desires. But how do we contrast that? So one, repentance is you're turning from your sin, but there's a second part. You have repented, God has accepted and forgave you, but now there's self-will in your life. There are things that you do. And it's just like Jesus did in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus even had to pray for hours in the Garden of Gethsemane to submit His will to the Spirit. And He said, nevertheless, Father, not my will, but thine be done. He submitted His will in the garden. And that's what we have to do as Christians. We begin to submit our will to His will in our life so that He can do the things He desires. And I'll be reading from the book of Genesis today in chapter 4, starting in verse 1. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. So the Bible tells us that Abel brought sheep and sacrificed it to the Lord. And God accepted that sacrifice. But Cain brought fruit of the ground, but God did not accept it. Now, if we put it into contemporary times, is that without knowing it as Christians, we can be giving something to the Lord that we think He wants, and yet it's not the right sacrifice. It's not what He's asked for. So if I am trying to get into business, or if I want to take a trip, or if I want to find a new job, I have to give that, I have to sacrifice my will to the Lord. But perhaps there's something else over here that He's desired of me and that I don't even realize that I haven't given that to Him yet. Cain was very angry with God because he said, God is not my sacrifice enough for you. And so sometimes we don't even know that we're not giving the right sacrifice. And so there's two things we can do about this. And God helped me understand this. A few weeks ago, I didn't even realize that I had to give something to the Lord that He had wanted from me in prayer that I had held on to for months. And I had to sacrifice that and give that to Him. I didn't even recognize it. But there are two things that we can do if we want to understand how to give the proper sacrifice to the Lord. Is number one, ask a trusted spiritual advisor. So your pastor, an elder in the church, someone with a wonderful prayer life, go to ask them and say, is there something in my life that I need to give to the Lord that I haven't been doing? Because here's the problem as Christians sometimes, is we'll be sacrificing unto the Lord, but we're not getting anywhere. We're not growing in the Lord. Ministry's not multiplying. There's no fruit. And so frustration can begin, and then bitterness can set in. And so sometimes it's a simple fact of we're giving God something that he didn't ask for. He's wanting this part of our life that we haven't given him control over. And so the first thing I would recommend is going to someone you trust. And the second thing I would recommend is, this is what I pray often, is God, search my heart. Know my thoughts. See if there be any wicked thing in me. God, you know if there's something in me that needs to come out. But I need to be a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto you, which is my reasonable service, or it's the least that I can do. So repentance is very important. It is a turning from sin, never to go back to what we were doing. But a living sacrifice is what a Christian does on a day-to-day basis. And so God, how can I be pleasing? How can I be a vessel of honor for you that can go forward and be in ministry? Thank you and God bless.